What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It has been a little while and I apologize, but there's been a ton of stuff going on. I actually was getting under this thing today and I thought, man, I can't keep postponing it. I need to make another video again. Need to give you guys an update as to what's going on. I've had a ton of stuff filmed. There's a load of stuff on my hard drive because I've been out and doing all sorts of stuff. This thing's actually been wheeled, and that is what kind of gave me the reminder, like, I haven't even showed you guys any of that. I have not given you an update on what we ended up doing with the Jeep or even the completion of like phase 2. So this is a quick down and dirty on the WJ because I tore this thing down when the transmission went out of it, and I did a ton of stuff since then. So let me run you through real quick what actually went on, what we did to it, and where it's at now. Stay tuned. Alright, so if you haven't seen it, you can go back and find any of my videos. It gives you the full build breakdown on everything that was done to this thing. After the transmission went out in this thing, I needed to make some upgrades. So originally I found a set of axles, the 14 bolt in the rear and the 60 in the front, that had 410 matching gears and the limited slip in the rear. We went and just overhauled everything at that point. So what this thing got was grizzly lockers and 538s. It got a double shear system on the front. Beyond Precise Fabrication, they have a knuckle kit for this to do a double shear setup. It got PSC hydro assist steering. It got a brand new transmission. I reconfigured the steering in the front. I got a Genrite pitman arm up top. Got some trimming in the rear. I've cut out some new portions of the fenders to clear everything that we're clearing. And effectively, we're running 40-inch tires on a 4-inch long arm kit all the way around. So good clearance, still relatively low in terms of ride height and center of gravity. And the thing's a beast. It's a ton of fun to drive. I'm having a blast with it, and I am trying my best to leave it alone. I've had to play around a little bit with the suspension and where the limits are on some of that. That's where the upgrade kind of comes in. I've got this set of coilovers, you know, 2.0 16-inch travel Fox remote reservoir coilovers sitting here. They're supposed to be for the Durango, but as the Durango sits here longer, I kind of keep feeling like maybe I just need to upgrade to 2.5 or 3.0 16-inch travel coilovers for the Durango and put the 2.0s on this thing and go from there. I'm one guy, I can't do it all, so we're gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna fight the urge to do anything different. Everything is functioning the way that it should. It's working out really great. I've got a couple of things that I've tweaked up front, but for the most part, it's long arm geometry. It's still the same wheelbase. Nothing is really bumped out or extended. That has created a few things here in the front where maybe the track bar and the steering setup are a little tight, but hasn't created any issues. I don't really have any binding. It might be limiting some of the up travel a little bit, but I've mediated that. And here, real quick, I'll show you how I did this. All right, so I love this thing. This is the pitman arm. I think it's called the Twisted Pitman Arm from Genrite. Super cool. And what you can see is up here, it is double shear, but I have dropped this down to the bottom because you can also see right here on my oil pan, there is a spot where something has hit it. And that something is the drag link from the steering. So what I found with this is the drop pitman arm from before, it's too much leverage and it started to, you know, loosen, which makes sense. It's gonna happen, not loosen, but basically strip out a little bit on the inside, the teeth. It's just too low, it's too much leverage, and it's too much force on it as well. So this fabricated pitman arm from Genrite, I mean, it's sick. I saw it on one of their, I think, JK builds at King of the Hammers, and I had a picture of it, and I was like, I mean, if I ever need anything different, that's what I'll get. So that's what we did here. And what we actually had to do as well is I needed to notch out the frame so it clears, which worked out perfect. Welded a piece of steel in there, worked awesome. However, what I did find was with it being up inside of the double shear setup, the drag link was just too close to the oil pan. So my quick and easy solution is that bolt goes all the way up through the top of the pitman arm now and then all the way through the bottom of the link. It drops down the drag link and also doesn't create any interference anywhere else. So works fine. works well, and no issues with it. There's a few other little things that I went in and cleaned up too. Like after the original build, I had brake lines that I picked up that I thought would be long enough. To me, they just weren't quite long enough for what we were doing, and you know, really, I think it was like a 3-inch TJ lift brake line, which in terms of the fittings, that in theory is perfect and they work just fine, but at full droop they were stretching a little bit too far because the brake points are out a little bit farther because it's a 1-ton axle and not a Dana 30 or Dana 40 Ford even. So little things like that, much nicer brake line setups, same thing in the rear, and actually just doing things like, I think I had them zip tied around the truss before, because the attachment points, back when I first did it, I thought I was going to use self-tappers and drill the little tabs through. There was no way a self-tapper was going into 1/4-inch steel. So we did stuff like weld on actual tabs that have the screws on them to use, and fasten the line directly to the truss. All right, so we hadn't gotten this thing out a bunch either, and been able to use it with full, you know, lockers front and rear, 538s, the new transmission. That was a process. Runs great. Everything's doing awesome. Like I said, I think the only complaint that I have now is I'd like coilovers instead of coil springs and shocks, which would also help eliminate some of the other issue that I'm having in the back, which is that this spring unseats itself. I could do what I did in the front, except these bump stops in the back, while they are metal, you can't really see it in there, but while they are metal at the bottom, it's a rubber bushing in the middle. Some of this stuff is just hard to weld on. It's not impossible, you can do it, it's just, I don't love it. I actually can't stand welding on the frame in this thing, or the unibody, because I burn through it in like 2 seconds. So you have to get like the lowest possible setting on your welder. So, little things that I would fix like that, but it's nothing too crazy. We're just going to keep going with it. We're just going to keep wheeling it, because while this thing's super fun to play with, the JL is definitely something that we've been doing a lot more with. I got it so that we could do some like mild wheeling with the family and just have fun with it, and it would be comfortable and something we could hang out in, but we have done some really aggressive wheeling with it and had a really good time with it. And I will say that if you're considering something like this, 37s, they do great. So this one is the 2-inch Terraflex kit with remote reservoir Falcon shocks. Really like the setup. It works really, really well. 37s are plenty big enough for most stuff, but I will say, I actually had it out at Tillamook State Forest here a couple weeks ago, got into crushers, probably more of an extreme boulder field than a lot of people are going to get into. But we had it at Sand Hollow also, and the same issue that I had at both places was that there's not a lot of ground clearance on the bottom. So grabs a skid plate, grabs a frame rail, grabs a rock slider. Again, not that big of a deal at all, but there's a few things that we could do to kind of switch that up. That, and I'm obsessed with continuing to modify things and move in another direction. So I do have a new kit for this. This is going to get another inch of travel out of it, or it's gonna get another inch of suspension out of it. I've got a 3-inch kit that I will tell you more about on a different video, but there's a 3-inch kit that's gonna bump it up an inch. I've also got, we're gonna get rid of these fenders. Well, we're gonna keep these fenders. We're gonna split the 2-piece off. I'm gonna upgrade those. I've got another light kit that goes with that for the front. I really like the way the fenders are set up, so I don't want to just ditch them. I'd like to just make a little bit of a change. So we're going to modify the clearance with the fenders. We're going to keep the ride height still fairly low, but we're going to give ourselves a little bit more suspension lift, and then we're going to give ourselves a little more tire, have some gears coming. We have a new tire setup, and suspension. There's a bunch of stuff that's coming, so you're gonna have to stay tuned for some of that stuff, and keep posted to the channel. So the last update is I am still making some progress on this. This has obviously taken a back seat to the other things I have going on, because not only am I doing things to both of these rigs and going out and using them and working full time and, you know, spending time with the family, but I'm also maintaining most of my things. So even like our RV and stuff like that, things need maintenance. If you use it, you got to take care of them, and I'm kind of the one-man show for all of that stuff, so I'm the one doing it. But My little guy, he's about 3.5 now. He did say the other day, he said, "Dad, we got to get the motor started in the Durango." I thought, all right, cool, dude, let's do it. Let's go get it in the Durango. So we've been plugging away at this a little bit. You can go back and check out some of the previous videos. This is collecting dust in here. It's not going to stay in here forever, I promise. We will do more with it. But this is a 6-liter LS. LQ4. It has 799 heads on it from a 5.3 LS, and then a bunch of comp cams, internals, bigger cam, lifters, springs, things like that. Nothing too crazy. It's still a relatively modest build. Most of it's the top end, and Holley intake, a few other Holley parts, and terminator that we're going to put on it for all the management systems. So a lot of work to go into this still. Using a bunch of other stuff. You can actually check out one of the other videos on the channel if you want a full rundown of what this is. But I do plan on focusing on this a lot more. The upgrades that need to happen to the JL really need to happen in the next couple of weeks, because we've got trips coming up, we've got things planned, and I only have a few weeks to do it, which is kind of what, again, prompted this video. I just want to start sharing this stuff with you guys again. It just gets overwhelming. You got a lot of stuff going on, you got a lot of video content you shoot, and sometimes it doesn't all come together exactly the way you want it to, and it's a lot of extra work. So I'm going to start sharing this stuff with you again, but I'm going to try to give you regular updates on what's going on. If you've got questions on it, feel free to drop it in the comments down below. If you want to stay up to speed on what we got coming up, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up if you're into this, and I'll see you on the next one.